Okay, next up we have Atlantic Lithium, ASX code A11, and they have a market cap of around 300 million. Atlantic Lithium is a lithium-focused exploration and development company advancing its flagship Ewoyaa Project in Ghana, West Africa to production. Presenting for the company today is Atlantic Executive Chairman Neil Herbert. Neil, welcome to the network and please take it away.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so for the uninitiated, Atlantic Lithium is listed here in Australia with the ticker A11 and in London AIM at the ticker ALL. I'll say up front because I think some of you will already know, we had two offers recently to buy the company, one of which we announced this week at a price of 63 cents per share, and we currently trade at 53 cents per share. I'm going to explain why we see more value in the company than 63 cents per share today, and explain the project to you. So that first picture there shows our team currently in Ghana, and as you can see, overwhelmingly a Ghanaian team. One of the great things of working in Ghana is it's a long-established mining jurisdiction, over 100 years, over 20 large-scale mining operations in country, principal gold, but other minerals, but we will be the first lithium mine. Please flip the slide. The speed reading for you there, 1, 2, 3, and the next one, thank you. So as I was saying, a very good mining jurisdiction, and as a result of which we have all the staff we need in country. We don't need to go looking overseas for that. What we provide from here in Australia, obviously, is technical assistance and overview from the corporate side. So a very good team and a building team as we speak. In terms of the mineral resource, we already have 35 million tonnes in total at 1.25, with very low impurities. All the off-takers like our product. Already 4/5 of that will be moved up into reserves, and we expect it to continue to grow. Economics, well, this is one of the reasons why there have been two offers for the company recently. It's astounding economics. Fortunately, the nature of the deposit and indeed the infrastructure available to us in country make it so. So we'll come back to that in a little while. In terms of the project, the credentials, as you will see, it's just extremely fortuitous in where the situation of the deposit is. It's actually on the coast with good roads nearby and indeed power available, and the port only 110 kilometers away. So very good location. And most importantly of all, and this is, I think, where it stands out amongst many of the lithium companies out there today, we're looking at first production in the next 18 months. So look out for that. Next slide, please. So it's a quick overview of the capitalization of the company today and the principal shareholders. As you can see, we've got some very big shareholders, and indeed the largest shareholder, which is ASA International, which is a South African mining group, very well established in Africa, is the group that made the offers to us over the last month and a half. As I say, at 63 cents per share. Having considered those, we rejected both of them. But I will say it's a very strong relationship. They've contributed to the company's success since 2015 now. I've been a major supporter as a shareholder, but also technically they sit on our technical committee and bring in their mining expertise. So we're very grateful for them for their participation. Second to ASA, we also have Piedmont, which I'm sure some of you will be familiar with. Piedmont has a 9% stake at the topco level, and by providing most of the funding to take the project to production, they're also earning into the joint venture level. So look forward to seeing that grow as they make their investments. We also have about 11 million Australian dollars in cash, and we'll come back to the cash and how we're providing for the build costs in a minute. Next slide, please. So the Ewoyaa Project is a very significant project in world terms and in Africa terms. As you can see, it's one of the 10 largest spodumene projects when it comes to production. 365,000 tonnes of product per annum. We are actually looking to see how obviously we can add to that. I think there's lots of expansion potential there. But even as we start 18 months from now, this is going to be a very significant project and lots of growth potential going forward. Flip the slide, please. There's a major event for us in the recent history. About 3 weeks ago, we obtained our mining lease. Obviously, this is a very important license in terms of effectively the green light for us to take this project to production now. So with that, we're now on a track to take the production, and we'll look to break ground on the project later next year. Complete the remaining permitting hurdles, which are important, but obviously relatively small compared to the mining lease itself. And indeed, we're doing a series of additional studies. So one of the things that we have worked with the government and the various agencies of government and the local communities and the region is actually making sure this project is one everybody benefits from. So we have important government stake, and as you'll see, an investment from the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Ghana, and an active participation from the Minerals Commission in what we're doing. And we really appreciate that involvement, and we look forward to continuing to work with the government. One of the things that we agreed to do is a study on feldspar. So one of the byproducts we have is feldspar, and it looks to be a very good quality product, which can feed into the ceramics industry, which the government wishes to grow in country. We're also looking at downstream opportunity to see if there's anything we can do in country there. We'll also be looking to take the company onto the Ghana Stock Exchange, as well as our Australian and our London listings. And we have an important community development fund which ensure considerable investment as the mine produces. So it's a very significant mine for Ghana. They're very pleased with the project and hugely supportive of what we're doing. Next slide, please. So in terms of the economics, and we've already commented on this, very robust. Obviously, the capex is actually quite modest at $185 million in total. And the main reason for that is it's relatively straightforward mining conditions with the good infrastructure. We're only doing DMS, so we're not doing flotation in the early stages of the project. So that contributes, and I think one of the most important number I can point out here is actually the all-in sustaining cost. So if you look at that all-in sustaining cost of $675 per tonne, that compares very well to a lot of Australian projects. And actually, if you look at the current lithium price, which people are getting a little bit depressed about, is around $1,700. Obviously, that's a phenomenal margin. So this is a project which will last. It's not a high-cost producer. It will be able to produce in just about any conditions. Put the slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, we have a major investment from the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Ghana, and this is part of our global understanding with the government. They're investing actually into Atlantic Lithium itself on a commercial basis and into the project on a commercial basis for a total of $43.9 million. Obviously, a very significant investment ultimately by the government of Ghana, and shows you the interest that they have in what we're doing. Next slide, please. In terms of the offtake arrangements today, so we have an agreement with Piedmont, as I commented on earlier. And so Piedmont, by providing most of the funding for the mine build, have already got the offtake rights for 50% of the product. And they're obviously producing and selling to Tesla and LG Chem. We have the remaining 50%, which obviously gives us some financing options as well. So obviously, we're currently in discussions. We appointed a major Australian investment bank to run a process for us, and we'll come to a conclusion on that early next year. So watch that space. Flip the slide, please. And this is the financing as it stands today. So you can see there our total capex requirements of $185 million. We provide, and how that's made up in terms of the costs, but also in terms of where that money's coming from. And most noticeably, the first provision is for the first $70 million is provided for by Piedmont. And then we have other additions, which obviously the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And ultimately, we have a remaining portion around $38 million, which is a relatively modest amount of money with the offtake available to us. So we have lots of options about how we can provide for that financing. And we don't necessarily need to do that very quickly as well, given the first $70 million of financing comes from Piedmont. Flip the slide, please. In terms of our timeline, where we sit today is obviously, as I said earlier, very importantly completed the mining lease grant. We go through the remaining steps of the permitting through to about the middle of next year, at which point we get a mining operating permit and we can break ground. We'd like to do that in September, and looking at the first production by the end of Q2 the following year. So as I say, around 18 months in total. We're already working on the steps for the movement of the transmission line. It goes across our site. Fortunately, we have power available to us. We don't need very much power for the project, but actually we need to move to one side because it actually goes across one of our pegmatites. And indeed, we'll start mobilizing on the earthworks, etc. following that. The deployment of the modular DMS, a very important opportunity for us for early cash flow, and this is how we're going to get early cash flow in 2025. But we're looking then for the main plant runs up in 2026, so we have full production, as we said, at 365,000 tonnes per annum average. So a very significant project. Slide, please. Let's talk about the upside here. So you can see our license portfolio today, and indeed, we're getting more grants. So one of the agreements we had with the government, and the government is very anxious, obviously, to ensure that the lithium business continues to grow in country. We had a number of applications outstanding with them, and they've now started to grant those applications for exploration areas. We got 2 this week, which some of you may have seen, one of which for Dwancy, we actually think is a very important license. We know there's mineralization on it. So if you're looking at the project today, we have a 12.5 year life for the mine. But we want to do is continually add to that so we can look at further expansion indeed and add to the mine life over time. So this project will last much longer. In overall terms, I think we've worked a tiny fraction of our license area overall. So we think there's lots of good potential to continually grow this. And we recently approved a much larger drill program to do exploration work as well as the infill drilling we've been doing recently. Flip the slide, please. So in terms of the exploration program sitting out here, we recently increased our infill and extensional and explorational drilling to 26,500 meters. Obviously a very significant amount. Actually, it's not very expensive to do the drilling on the location. It's relatively easy access and we can work through that relatively quickly. And so what we'd like to do is then come up with a new resource statement, maybe at the end of Q2. We're currently about 35 million tons, as I said earlier. We'd like to move it up to maybe 40 million tons or so in the course of next year, but we'll see how we go. Flip the slide, please. So this provides an overview of where we are today. As I say, we're now completing the remaining permitting steps. And to be honest, we've actually got broken the back of it, if you like, in terms of getting the mining lease. There are some remaining steps that we're completing, but very supportive from the government, have no expectations of that taking that long for us to do, so we can stay on track for breaking ground on the project. We're also doing additional studies on flotation, feldspar, downstream, all things that would be value added to the project. So there's a lot more value we think we can extract here. And we're looking to actually have the project up and running, as I say, by the end of Q2 2025, which isn't that long away. So it makes us one of the few near-term producers out there. One of the things we focused on is obviously people are paramount to what we do. So we're building up a very experienced team within Ghana itself, but also expertise in spodumene, which we have an office in Perth, which has been expanding. Obviously, that provides us the expertise in spodumene mining. We're very fortunate to have a CEO who actually has run a spodumene mine successfully, which is Keith Muller. You'll see him on other events, but a very experienced individual who knows how to take this project and maximize its value. And finally, as I've said, we're obtaining new tenure all the time, so more projects that we can evaluate within the license area portfolio and a lot of growth. So if you have interest in the stock, I would point out we're quite well covered. So you can see Evolution, Canaccord, Macquarie, Wilson's all cover us. There was also a nice feature by Argonaut on best undeveloped projects this week, and we were also included in that. So you can see us there as well.
Neil, many thanks. That's a very comprehensive presentation. Not easy to do it in 10 minutes. I think you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Now, question here. It's clear that the Ghanaian government is highly supportive of the company's project. How important has this relationship been to delivering the project to this point?
It's been essential. I always say when on projects I've worked on, you need to make sure you get your community relationship right. And from the very beginning, we've had very good relationships with the community, but also with the region. So we have a very good relationship with the region. And so with the move, obviously, from exploration to mining, we needed to set that relationship in stone with the government and the institutions of government to make sure that we have a progressive relationship going forward. So actually, they're making an investment into the project via the Sovereign Wealth Fund. I think is a real milestone for us, but also for them. And you can go online. They're incredibly enthusiastic about the opportunity that lithium is to them in terms of diversification. I mean, obviously, they mainly produce gold in country. They have some manganese and some other industrial minerals, but lithium will be the first lithium mine, and they're very pleased to have us.
And look, you touched earlier about the offer that you rejected from a major shareholder, ASOR. I know you've answered this a few times this week, but I think it's important to ask you again. Can you talk to us about the rationale behind the rejection of the offer and why it was not considered in the best interest of shareholders?
I think you were commenting earlier about the condition of the junior market has been very sad recently. So our share price was in the doldrums, and I think it was about 38.5 cents. So when they offer 63 cents, that's a considerable premium to the price. But we actually have to go away and sit with our bankers and look at the fundamental value of the project, taking it to production. And it didn't meet that criteria. You'll be unsurprised to hear from the nature of the project and the economics that we've been discussing here today. So was unanimously rejected by the board when it was presented in October. It was represented by ASOR again at the same price, and we rejected it again recently. So we made that disclosure on Wednesday as we continue to cleanse the market. But I will emphasize it's a very strong relationship, but it just goes to show, and I think really, Paul, the one thing that is becoming increasingly apparent is the lithium sector is consolidating very quickly now. And I think that will accelerate into next year. And I wouldn't be surprised that other people will approach us regarding potential combinations of business, or indeed even ASL may or may not come back. That's for them. But you can see this is going to be a hotbed of activity in the coming year in terms of an area of focus. And yes, I'm not precious about the project as such. I want to take it to production. If somebody came along and offered the right price, happy to do a deal if I felt that was a good deal for shareholders. But our approach here is very much taking the project to production, keeping on that 18 months timeline, making sure we can get there and be cash flowing.
Yeah, I'll be keeping a close eye on your register over the coming weeks, Neil.
Will do.
And you touched on this earlier about the granting of those 2 new prospecting licenses in the eastern portion of your lithium portfolio. Remind us, how important can these be, and what are the plans for these new licenses?
So this area over to the east, there's an area of known mineralization where some preliminary work was done historically, which are very good indications on spodumene, frankly. So this, first of all, the Bidwati license is a very important one for us because we can see that has clear potential. So we'll be working on that and providing news on it. As I say, very much the approach here is obviously we have a good resource and reserve already established for our mine plan, but you want to continually add to that because that gives you the optionality of expanding the project going forward, or indeed adding to that mine life over time. So it's not a huge cost to continue to explore, but we want to do that. Look to actually getting an update mining resource maybe the middle of next year, so people can look forward to seeing that, and obviously breaking ground maybe at the end of Q3 next year.
And again, the granting of the mining lease was a critical step for the company. When do you anticipate? When do you anticipate the ministry will confirm approval, or is that just a box ticking exercise?
So obviously there are remaining steps, and there are all sorts of sundry permits and licenses you have to do, but these are relatively minor. The EPA permitting is largely about consolidating the mining area. We've obviously done extensive work already, so we just expect that to come in due course. We have to go through the hurdles. I say there are some sundry other permits and licenses to do with water, etc., that you must complete. All of that will come together, and so around the middle of next year, during the third quarter, we should actually get the license to operate, and then we can break ground.
Neil, many thanks for your time today. You have a great weekend and enjoy your last few days in Noosa.
Thank you, sir. Bye now.
Thank you.